FreqBlender is a plugin that helps you gain more control over every other plugin you own. Put it plainly, it's a mix knob that lets you blend between two different signals in 3 different frequency bands. Let me show you some mixing and mastering use cases first, and if you promise to stick around till the end, I'll also show you some more out there fun sound design tricks you can use it for. Here is a bass loop I want to saturate. I like all the nice fuzz and overtones the saturation adds, but processing in other areas is maybe a little much. Using FreqBlender we can blend between processed and dry signal in 3 bands and focus the processing where we actually want it, while keeping the rest of the signal clean. The neat thing about FreqBlender is that it just uses your DAW's sidechain routing to get the second signal to blend in, meaning it works with literally any other plugin or stock effect I have. Let's use it to compress a drum break next. I really like how the slow attack time brings out the transients when I compress this break, but what I don't like is how much it shortens the bass range of the kick drum. You can both hear and see on the waveform how the kick is just turned into these super short bursts. So let's simply dial back the compression on the bass range. This is effectively the same as a frequency dependent ratio, which you may be familiar with from other plugins, where the lower mix amount results in a lower compression ratio for the bass range. Especially in mastering, we really want to move with the utmost precision and control. Often effects we would like to apply to the song can have negative side effects in other parts of the frequency spectrum and stereo field. FreqBlender's multi-band and mid-side mixing capabilities really help us get what we want out of them, while doing as little damage as possible. Here is a master of one of my drops. I'd like to enhance it with a bit of glue compression. Let's first use the loudness matching between dry and wet signal to make for an easier blend. By default, the loudness matching is capped to never make the signal exceed 0 dBFS. I make electronic music, so I don't mind a bit of overshoot on my tracks. The issue with this broadband glue compression is of course that it's just a bit too much. Yes, I could of course just dial the compressor back, but just bear with me for a second here. Because I really like how it focuses the percussion in the mid-range, the sharpened kick and snare transients are a great touch. But the song is just completely smashed and pumping. So let's use FreqBlender to cut back the compression into the places we want it. The plugin also comes with a very neat mid-side control for each band. This allows us to only apply the compression to the mids, while keeping the sides nice and open. You can see how FreqBlender really helps me focus the compression exactly where I want it here. while avoiding effects on parts of the frequency spectrum of the mix I would rather leave alone. This can help make effects that are normally a bit much for a lot of mastering scenarios actually become viable. Consider this kilohertz transient shaper, which is not really designed for mastering. It's completely overbearing on its own when applied to a full mix. I'll first play you the dry sound, then the transient shaped sound, and then the blend of the two I came up with. For all of you still wondering how exactly the plugin can achieve this, it's really quite simple. It just mixes between its sidechain and dry input, which you can route however you feel. I personally like using it in a little rack I made in my DAW Bitwig. Most other DAWs should be able to create a similar setup. I set it to always receive audio from this tool device and mix it with whatever audio is coming into the plugin directly. Whatever chain I build in between the two will be what FreqBlender acts as a dry-wet control for. The phase conscious among you will be relieved to hear that FreqBlender works with a set of complementary shelving filters, not with a crossover. It just shelves up or down the dry and wet signal in 3 bands to get you the results you want. Put it simply, this means that the phase response is always proportional to the processing you do, and the phase shift is a lot more subtle than your typical minimum phase crossover, while remaining completely free of latency. We can visualize this quite easily by setting the wet signal it receives to silence. As we blend in that silence, we see the subtle phase shift depending on our filter shape. When mixing with something other than silence, it'll be even subtler in most cases. Just compare this to the much more aggressive phase shift of an ordinary multiband crossover. While we are on the subject of phase, because FreqBlender uses a type of parallel processing, the phase shift caused by the plugins you use it with can actually make quite significant difference. For instance, here I'm using a FabFilter Saturn for some multiband distortion, which I am then mixing with a dry signal using FreqBlender. You'll be able to hear a clear difference between swapping between the linear phase and minimum phase modes of Saturn, which would be a lot less noticeable than if you are just using Saturn on its own. Likewise, using this EQ inside FreqBlender, you can see how the total frequency response will change if I swap between linear and minimum phase modes. Why this happens is a bit beyond the scope of this video, but it's a common effect in any kind of parallel processing, not just in FreqBlender. If you are ever using some kind of filtering or multiband effect inside of FreqBlender, just try swapping between linear and minimum phase modes. You may find that you prefer one over the other. Lastly, just for good measure, I want to show you a few more creative applications of FreqBlender, just to give you some ideas for the millions of other use cases you can discover on your own. No one is gonna stop you from using FreqBlender to control the abrasive effects of a bit crusher. Using it to fine-tune the frequency response of your sidechain ducking. Using it to mix a short reverb into the sides of your signal only to create a perfectly mono-compatible stereo widening effect. Building much more complex chains to mix into the dry, like this spectral mesh generator. or even modulating its cutoff frequency with an LFO to create a strange phasery distortion effect. Since you can combine it with anything in a highly modular way, there are literally infinite use cases. I hope you can forgive me for not covering them all in one video.